You're welcome to the Highest Stories, your #1 channel for interesting African folktale stories. In a beautiful land where the hills rolled like gentle waves, there lay a charming village named Oyud. The sun painted the sky with warm hues of orange and yellow each morning, welcoming the villagers to another day filled with laughter and the rich aroma of traditional meals. In this lively village lived Elder Juma, a respected leader known for his wisdom and kindness. He was a man with a heart as big as the sky, always ready to lend a helping hand or share a comforting word. His deep commitment to his village made him a beloved figure among the people. Every evening, Elder Juma would gather the villagers under the shade of a large baobab tree. They would sit close together, listening eagerly as he shared stories of their ancestors, tales filled with bravery, wisdom, and lessons learned over generations. The villagers cherished these moments, for they knew that through stories, their rich heritage would live on. Among those who listened intently was Zoe, Elder Juma's spirited young daughter. With bright eyes full of dreams, Zoe longed to become a storyteller, just like her father. She would often be found drawing pictures in the dirt, illustrating the stories she wished to share with the world. Her imagination was as boundless as the vast African sky, and she felt a deep connection to the tales of her people. The days in Oyud were filled with sunshine and laughter, and the villagers worked together, tending to their crops and caring for their animals. They celebrated life's simple pleasures, often gathering for joyous feasts under the stars. But little did they know that dark clouds were gathering on the horizon, threatening to disrupt their peaceful existence. On one fateful day, the skies that had always been so bright began to change. The sun shone fiercely, but the rains that usually nourished the land did not come. The earth grew dry and cracked, and the once lush fields began to wither. The villagers watched in despair as their crops struggled to survive, and whispers of worry began to spread through Oyud. This was a sign from Ohawese, the god of rain and thunder. As the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the villagers gathered for an emergency meeting. Elder Juma stood at the front, his face lined with concern, as the villagers shared their fears. The drought was more severe than anyone had imagined, and it threatened not just their crops, but their very way of life. Friends, we must remain strong, Juma urged. We have faced challenges before, and together we can overcome this one too. His voice was steady, but deep down, he felt the weight of worry pressing on his heart. The villagers nodded, but uncertainty lingered in their eyes. Just as hope seemed to flicker like a candle in the wind, dark clouds rolled in from the distance. Thunder rumbled ominously, and the villagers whispered of an ancient legend they had long forgotten. They spoke of a time when the spirits of the land demanded a sacrifice to bring back the rains. Fear gripped their hearts as they pondered what this might mean for their community. In the days that followed, the village council met to discuss the dire situation. The elders, wise and experienced, were torn. We must appease the spirits, one elder insisted. A sacrifice must be made. Others nodded in agreement, their faces grave. The tension in the air was thick as they debated the best course of action. As whispers filled the room, some villagers suggested sacrificing an animal, a goat or a cow, while others argued that a human sacrifice was needed to truly please the spirits. The discussions grew heated, and fear replaced the joy that once filled their hearts. Elder Juma listened intently, his heart heavy with the weight of their discussions. He knew that sacrifices had been made in the past, but the thought of offering a human life was unbearable to him as he thought about the turmoil that the family and relatives of the sacrificed would go through. He felt torn between his duty to protect the life of any innocent villager and his responsibility to his village. Meanwhile, Zay remained blissfully unaware of the chaos unfolding in the village. With a basket in hand, she ventured into the forest to gather herbs for Mama Nia, an elder known for her healing potions. Zoe hummed a cheerful tune as she wandered deeper into the trees, feeling the warmth of the sun on her back. As Zoe collected the herbs, she couldn't help but admire the beauty around her, the vibrant greens of the leaves, the colorful flowers blooming, and the gentle rustle of the wind. She dreamed of becoming a storyteller, sharing tales of bravery and hope, and making her father proud. But little did she know, her dreams were about to be tested in ways she could never imagine. Back in the village, the council's discussions continued late into the night. Elder Juma's heart sank as he watched the fear in the villagers' eyes. They felt the weight of the drought, and desperation was settling in like a thick fog. The elders finally agreed that they needed to consult the oracle for guidance. The following day, the villagers gathered at the sacred grove to seek the oracle's wisdom. The air was thick with tension as they awaited the oracle's arrival, hoping for a sign that would lead them to the right path. In the midst of their turmoil, the oracle's arrival brought a flicker of hope. Dressed in flowing robes adorned with symbols of the earth, the oracle walked with a grace that commanded respect. The villagers fell silent, eager to hear the words of wisdom that would guide them through the darkness. "The spirits are restless," the oracle proclaimed, her voice echoing through the gathering. "They demand a sacrifice to restore balance to our land. It is a time of great trial, and the choice we make will shape our future." The villagers held their breath, feeling the gravity of her words. With a solemn voice, the oracle spoke, "To bring back the rains, a significant sacrifice must be made." The villagers held their breath, anticipation and fear swirling together. Then came the devastating words, "It must be Zoe, the daughter of Elder Juma." Gasps echoed through the crowd as shock washed over Elder Juma. His heart sank, and a wave of despair swept through him. The villagers murmured among themselves, some expressing disbelief, while others nodded, believing that this was the only way to save their village. Then there were those who had been jealous of his position in the village that believed that he deserved it as he must have done some terrible to annoy the gods. Elder Juma looked around at the concerned faces of his fellow villagers, torn between his love for Zoe and his duty to the community. He felt the weight of their expectations pressing down on him, like a heavy stone. How could he choose between saving his daughter and fulfilling the village's desperate need? Unbeknownst to Zoe, the storm was brewing not just in the skies, but in the hearts of the villagers. She returned home, her basket full of herbs, excited to share her findings with her father. Little did she know that her world was about to change forever. Elder Juma embraced Zoe tightly, feeling grateful for her presence, yet burdened by the knowledge of the impending decisions. He gazed into her bright eyes, filled with dreams and innocence, and his heart ached. How could he protect her from the darkness that loomed ahead? As night fell, the village council met once more, the air thick with tension and fear. The elders debated fiercely, each voice rising above the other. The weight of their decision loomed heavily, and the fate of Zoe hung in the balance. Elder Juma felt his heart racing as he listened to the council's arguments. The thought of sacrificing his daughter seemed unimaginable. He knew he had to find a way to save her, but how could he stand against the will of the village? As the villagers gathered at the community center, fear and uncertainty filled the air. They whispered among themselves, their faces pale and anxious. The drought had taken so much from them, and now, they faced a choice that could change their lives forever. With a heavy heart, Elder Juma stood before the villagers, preparing to speak. He took a deep breath, knowing that his words could either unite them or drive them further apart. "My friends," he began, "we must find a way to save our village without sacrificing our loved ones." The villagers listened attentively, some nodding in agreement, while others shook their heads, clinging to the belief that a sacrifice was necessary. The tension in the air was palpable, and the weight of the decision loomed larger with each passing moment. As the sun set and the stars began to twinkle, dark clouds gathered ominously in the distance. The winds picked up, a sign of a heavy storm that was to come, both in the skies and within the hearts of the villagers. Elder Juma gazed toward the horizon, his heart heavy with uncertainty. The village of Oyud was at a crossroads, and the choices they would make in the coming days would determine their fate. Would they find a way to save their beloved Zoe, or would fear lead them down a dark path? And so, the story of Oyud unfolds, filled with challenges, choices, and the bonds of family and community. What will happen next? Only time would tell as the storm approached, threatening to change everything. As dawn broke over the village of Oyud, the atmosphere was heavy with worry. The villagers gathered once again at the community center, their faces drawn with anxiety. The drought had now stretched on for weeks, and the once vibrant fields lay parched and lifeless. Elder Juma sensed the rising tension. It felt as if the very ground beneath their feet was trembling with fear. "Friends," Elder Juma began, his voice steady but filled with concern, "we must cling to hope. We are a strong community, and together we can find a way through this. But as he looked into the eyes of his neighbors, he could see that hope was waning like the sun setting in the west. Whispers of doubt spread like wildfire among the villagers. What if the spirits have abandoned us? One villager murmured. Another replied, maybe we need to make a sacrifice after all. The fear of the unknown clouded their minds, and Elder Jumo felt the weight of their uncertainty pressing down on him. Elder Jumo felt a storm brewing within him. The oracle's words echoed in his mind, but his heart screamed to protect Zai. He thought of her, remembering her innocent smile, a stark contrast to the heaviness of the moment. How could he choose between his beloved daughter and the needs of the village? Meanwhile, Zai continued her walk, gathering herbs in the forest, completely unaware of the storm brewing in her father's heart. She felt a sense of peace in nature, as if the trees whispered secrets just for her. Little did she know, the winds of fate were shifting, and her life was about to change forever. Back in the village, the discussions grew heated. Some villagers argued for an animal sacrifice, while others demanded a human offering. Only a true sacrifice will please the spirits, one elder insisted passionately. The arguments grew louder, creating an atmosphere of tension that thickened like fog. Elder Jumo stepped forward, his heart pounding. We must think carefully about our choices, he urged. We cannot let fear guide us to madness. Let us seek another way. His voice rang out, but doubts lingered in the air like smoke from a dying fire. Some villagers nodded in agreement, their faces showing the desire for a peaceful solution. Yet others shook their heads, clinging to the notion that a sacrifice was the only way. The divide among them grew deeper, and Elder Jumo felt the weight of his responsibilities pressing down on him. As the villagers debated, the winds began to howl, and the villagers looked up, fear etching lines across their faces. The storm was not just in the skies, it was brewing in their hearts, threatening to unleash chaos. With the heavy storm approaching, the villagers hurried to gather supplies and secure their homes. Elder Jumo rallied them, urging everyone to work together. We must prepare for what's to come. Let us show the spirits our strength as a community. But in the back of his mind, his thoughts remained on Zai, and the danger that loomed. As the winds picked up, Elder Jumo searched for Zai, calling her name. Panic surged through him as he realized she was still in the forest gathering herbs. Zai, he shouted, his voice carrying on the wind. He knew he needed to find her before the storm hit. Zai continued her walk, blissfully unaware of the chaos around her. She hummed softly, her heart light, believing that she could bring joy to her village through her storytelling. But as she gathered the last of the herbs, she felt a sudden chill in the air, causing her to pause. Looking up at the darkening sky, Zai felt a sense of foreboding. The winds howled like a pack of wolves. I should head home, she thought, sensing the urgency in the air. But before she could turn back, the storm erupted in fury. Suddenly, a deafening roar echoed through the forest as a massive landslide tumbled down the hillside, rocks and debris crashing down with terrifying speed. Zai's heart raced as she tried to escape, but the ground shook beneath her feet, and she stumbled, falling to the earth as the rocks buried her beneath a heavy mass. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the village of Oyud, Elder Jumo raced through the dense forest, his heart pounding with fear. He had just learned about the landslide that had trapped his beloved daughter, Zai, beneath heavy rocks. Panic gripped him like a vice as he navigated the twisting paths, his thoughts consumed by the peril Zai was in. Elder Jumo felt a cold grip of fear clench his heart. Zai, he shouted, his voice filled with desperation. He raced toward the forest, the storm raging around him, and panic surged through him as he realized she was in danger. Zai, he shouted again, his voice echoing through the trees. I'm coming, my daughter. The wind rustled the leaves, as if whispering encouragement. Jumo could hear the distant sound of the shallow river, but it was drowned out by the growing storm. With each step, the ground kicked up into grains of dust that blocked his vision, and the sky above darkened ominously. The villagers, witnessing Jumo's frantic search, gathered around, concern etched on their faces. What if she's trapped? Someone whispered. The storm intensified, and the winds howled like beasts, adding to the chaos. Elder Juma pressed on, determined to find his daughter. When Elder Juma reached the landslide, horror washed over him. The ground was scattered with rocks, and he could hear faint cries muffled beneath the debris. "Zoe," he cried, his heart pounding in his chest. He desperately began to dig, his hands clawing at the earth, fueled by love and fear. The villagers watched in a mix of fear and uncertainty. Some wanted to help Juma, but others were hesitant. "What if we anger the spirits?" one villager murmured. "We cannot risk our lives." The fear of sacrifice loomed over them like a dark cloud. Ignoring their hesitation, Juma continued to dig with all his strength. "I will not abandon my daughter," he shouted, his voice filled with determination. He could feel the weight of the rocks pressing down on him, but he refused to give up. He had to save Zoe. Just then, a familiar voice broke through the chaos. It was Kofi, Juma's oldest friend, who had been hunting nearby. "Juma." Kofi called, rushing to his side. "What happened?" "It's Zoe. She's trapped." Juma's voice trembled with urgency as he pointed to the pile of debris. "We have to save her." Without hesitation, Kofi joined him, and together they worked tirelessly, lifting rocks and clearing away the rubble. Sweat dripped from their brows as they strained against the weight, but their determination fueled them. "Hang on, Zoe. We are coming," Juma shouted, hoping she could hear him. Suddenly, he heard a faint voice calling out, muffled but unmistakable. "Father." Zoe's voice sent a surge of hope through Juma. He redoubled his efforts, his heart racing as he dug faster, praying that he could reach her in time. At last, after what felt like an eternity, Juma's hands broke through the last of the rubble. He gasped as he saw Zoe's hand reach out, trembling but alive. "I'm here, Zoe," he cried, tears of relief streaming down his face. Elder Juma held Zoe tightly, his heart filled with overwhelming relief. "You're safe," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. Zoe looked up at him, her eyes wide with fear but also gratitude. "I thought I wouldn't make it," she replied, tears brimming in her eyes. In the back of Juma's mind, the weight of the council's decision still loomed. The villagers' relief was bittersweet, knowing that they still faced the looming threat of sacrifice. How could they find a way to appease the spirits without losing Zoe? Minutes felt like hours, but finally, they managed to shift a large rock, revealing Zoe's small frame. She lay unconscious, her face pale and her body covered in dirt. Juma's heart shattered at the sight. "Zoe," he cried, rushing to her side. He gently cradled her head in his hands, brushing away the dirt from her forehead. "Is she alive?" Kofi asked, concern etched on his face. Juma felt for a pulse, his heart racing until he finally felt a faint heartbeat. "Yes. She's alive," he exclaimed, relief washing over him. "But we need to get her out of here." As they carefully lifted her from the rubble, the storm began to unleash its fury. Thunder rumbled overhead, and a crazy wind began to blow, stirring up dust into their eyes. "We have to hurry," Kofi urged, glancing at the darkening sky. With Zoe safely in Juma's arms, they made their way back through the forest, the heavy wind making the ground unstable and treacherous. Juma's heart raced, not just from the physical exertion but from the fear of what would happen if the villagers found out about Zoe's near sacrifice. As they reached the edge of the forest, Juma could see the flickering lights of the village. But his heart sank as he remembered the elders' decision. Would they still demand Zoe's sacrifice after all this? Back in the village, chaos erupted as the storm grew fiercer. Villagers rushed to secure their homes, fear etched on their faces. Elder Juma and Kofi burst into the village center, carrying Zoe, who remained unconscious. The few villagers who glanced their way were too preoccupied with their fears to notice the urgency in Juma's eyes. "Get Mama near," Juma shouted, desperate for help. As they laid Zoe on the ground, Juma's heart sank. The elders were gathered at the village shrine, their voices raised in heated debate. Juma knew they were discussing the sacrifice. "Juma," one of the elders called out, spotting him. "Where is the girl? We need to make the sacrifice before it's too late." Jumo's heart raced. You can't. She's right here, he cried, pointing to Zoe. But the elder's eyes were clouded with desperation. Without the sacrifice, we will lose everything, another elder insisted, his voice trembling with fear. The spirits demanded. Just then, the first lightning bolt struck, illuminating the dark clouds. The villagers gasped, fear coursing through them. They gathered closer, whispering among themselves, their anxiety palpable. We will sacrifice her, one of the guards declared, stepping forward. We must do it for the village. Jumo's heart shattered once more. No. You can't take her, he shouted, standing protectively over Zoe. She is my daughter. We need to find another way. But the elders remained resolute, their minds clouded by fear. The council had decided. They sent guards to fetch Zoe, but Jumo would not let that happen. He turned to Kofi, desperation in his eyes. We have to get her out of here, he said urgently. Tonight, before they can make the sacrifice. As the guards moved toward them, Jumo and Kofi quickly devised a plan. Under the cover of the storm, they would sneak Zoe away from the village and the horrors that awaited her. Follow me, Jumo whispered, his heart pounding. They quickly lifted Zoe again, moving through the shadows of the village, praying that no one would see them. But the storm was relentless, and the winds howled around them. Just as they reached the edge of the village, a flash of lightning illuminated the path ahead. Jumo and Kofi froze, fear gripping them. They could hear the villagers shouting, the guards searching for Zoe. We have to move faster. Kofi urged, glancing back nervously. As they hurried along the dark path, Jumo's heart raced with dread. He knew the guards would not stop until they found Zoe, and he couldn't let them take her. Suddenly, they heard voices behind them. There they are, a guard shouted, pointing in their direction. Jumo's heart sank. Run, he yelled, urging Zoe and Kofi forward. But just as they turned to flee, they were surrounded by a group of guards. Stop right there, the guard commanded, his voice booming. You're not going anywhere with her. Jumo stepped forward, desperation flooding his voice. Please, you don't understand. We can't sacrifice her. She's innocent. But the guards were resolute, their eyes filled with fear and anger. The council has made their decision. You will all pay for your defiance. Jumo's heart sank as he realized they were trapped. The storm raged around them, and he could feel the weight of the villagers' expectations pressing down on him. Would they really sacrifice Zoe to appease the spirits? Just then, a loud crash echoed through the village as a tree fell, and chaos erupted. The guards were distracted, and in that moment, Jumo made a decision. We have to get away, he shouted to Kofi. With Zoe still unconscious in his arms, they pushed through the guards, their hearts racing as they fought for freedom. The storm raged on, but Jumo's determination grew stronger. He would not let fear take his daughter. As they ran through the village, Jumo's thoughts raced. He had to find a way to save Zoe, to show the villagers that there was another path forward. But time was running out, and the storm was only getting worse. As they neared the village shrine, the guards regrouped, ready to capture them once more. Jumo's heart raced as he realized they were cornered. But he would not give up. He would fight for his daughter, no matter the cost. Zoe, he called, hoping she could hear him. Hold on. We are almost there. In that moment, as the storm raged around them, Jumo knew that the battle was just beginning. They would have to fight not just for Zoe's life, but for the future of their village. And with that thought, he pushed forward, ready to face whatever awaited them. As the storm began to rage, Elder Jumo and Kofi found themselves cornered at the village shrine, their hearts pounding with fear and determination. The guards stood tall, their expressions hardened, blocking their way. Jumo's mind raced as he glanced around at the flickering torches that cast eerie shadows on the shrine's ancient stones. Let her go, one of the guards shouted, pointing at Zoe. You cannot defy the council's orders. Jumo held Zoe tightly in his arms, her peaceful face a stark contrast to the chaos surrounding them. You don't understand, he pleaded, desperation thick in his voice. Zoe is not just a sacrifice. She is my daughter and a beacon of hope for our village. But the guards were unmoved. They had been raised with the belief that sacrifices were necessary to appease the spirits. Juma could see the fear in their eyes, but he also saw the doubt. Please, you must listen, he urged, his voice rising above the wind. We can find another way to save our village. There must be another way. Just then, as if the heavens were responding to his plea, a loud crash of thunder echoed above, shaking the ground beneath them. The villagers, gathered in fear, turned their eyes toward the shrine. They could see the struggle unfolding, and whispers began to spread like wildfire through the crowd. Suddenly, a figure broke through the crowd, the village oracle, a wise old man with a long, flowing beard and eyes that sparkled with knowledge. He was known for his deep connection to the spirits and his ability to communicate their wishes. The villagers parted ways, making room for him to approach the shrine. Stop, the oracle commanded, raising his staff high. The storm seemed to hush for a moment, as if even nature was listening to his voice. I have come to deliver a message from the spirits. The guards hesitated, their resolve wavering as they looked toward the oracle. Juma seized the moment. Please, oracle. Tell me the truth. Zoe is not meant to be sacrificed, right? The oracle nodded slowly, his gaze shifting from Juma to Zoe. I have seen visions, he began, his voice steady and calm amidst the chaos. There has been a grave misunderstanding. The guards exchanged confused glances, their grip on their weapons loosening. What do you mean? One of them asked, uncertainty creeping into his voice. The oracle took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. The spirits do not wish for the daughter of Elder Juma to be sacrificed. They desire a goat, that is a Zoe breed type bred by Zoe herself, not Zoe. A wave of shock rippled through the villagers, their eyes wide with disbelief. Juma could hardly comprehend the words. A goat, he echoed, his heart pounding in his chest. You mean, all this time, it was a misunderstanding? The oracle nodded solemnly. Yes. The spirits desire balance and harmony. They do not wish for the life of an innocent child. Instead, they have called for a goat to be sacrificed in honor of Zoe's strength and spirit. A collective sigh of relief swept over the crowd as realization settled in. Juma felt tears of joy welling up in his eyes as he glanced down at Zoe, who was still unconscious but safe in his arms. Thank you, oracle, he exclaimed, his voice breaking with emotion. Thank you for saving my daughter. The villagers erupted in cheers, their fear and despair replaced with hope and gratitude. The guards, now unsure of their role, lowered their weapons, realizing the truth in the oracle's words. As the storm began to calm, the villagers gathered around the shrine, their faces illuminated by flickering torchlight. Elder Juma gently laid Zoe on a soft patch of grass, his heart filled with love and relief. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, wishing she would awaken soon. The oracle raised his staff high, calling for silence. Let us honor the spirits and the life of this brave girl, he said, his voice echoing through the night. We will prepare for the sacrifice of the goat, as the spirits have requested. Juma's heart swelled with gratitude. Thank you for your wisdom, oracle. We will honor the spirits in the right way. With newfound energy, the villagers sprang into action. They quickly organized the ceremony, gathering flowers, fruits, and other offerings to present to the spirits. The atmosphere was filled with excitement and hope as they prepared to celebrate Zoe's safety. As the preparations continued, Zoe began to stir. Slowly, she opened her eyes, blinking against the light of the torches. Father, she whispered, her voice weak but filled with warmth. Zoe. Juma exclaimed, rushing to her side. You're awake? Thank the spirits. Zoe smiled weakly, her eyes sparkling with love. What happened? I remember the storm, and then everything went dark. We thought we lost you, Juma said, his voice thick with emotion. But the oracle arrived just in time. The spirits did not want you, they only wanted a goat bread from you. You are safe now, my daughter. The villagers gathered around, their faces beaming with joy as they welcomed Zoe back. Zoe. Zoe, they chanted, their voices rising in celebration. With a smile, Zoe sat up, her heart swelling with happiness. Thank you all. I'm so grateful to be with you. The oracle nodded approvingly. Let us not forget the lessons learned today. Fear can cloud our judgment, but love and understanding will guide us toward the right path. As the villagers prepared for the goat sacrifice, Zoe looked at her father, her eyes filled with determination. Father, I want to help. I want to tell our story, so that everyone remembers this day and the importance of unity. Jumo smiled, pride swelling in his chest. You are already a great storyteller, Zoe. Your words have the power to inspire and heal our village. Let's share this story together. And so, the villagers gathered around the shrine, the storm now a distant memory. They shared laughter, stories, and songs, honoring the spirits and celebrating Zoe's safe return. The atmosphere was filled with love and hope, a renewed sense of community binding them together. As the sun rose the next morning, casting golden rays over the village of Oyud, the air was thick with a sense of renewal. The villagers had gathered at the shrine, ready to honor the spirits with the sacrifice of the goat. The mood was festive, filled with laughter and joy as they prepared for the ceremony. Elder Jumo stood beside Zoe, watching as the villagers decorated the shrine with colorful flowers and fruits. This is a new beginning for us, he said, his eyes shining with pride. We have learned that we must listen to one another and seek understanding, even in our darkest moments. Zoe nodded, her heart filled with gratitude. I will tell the story of how the storm brought us together and how love triumphed over fear. We must remember that our strength lies in our unity. As the villagers gathered in a circle around the shrine, the oracle began the ceremony, offering prayers to the spirits. The goat, adorned with flowers, was brought forward, symbolizing the village's gratitude and respect for the balance of life. With each prayer, the villagers felt a sense of peace wash over them. They understood that their community had survived a great trial, and now it was time to celebrate their resilience. As the goat was sacrificed, the villagers offered their thanks to the spirits, honoring the life that had been given. Juma held Zoe close, feeling the warmth of her presence. You are the heart of this village, he whispered, his voice filled with emotion. After the ceremony, the villagers feasted together, sharing stories and laughter. Zoe stood up to speak, her voice ringing clear and strong. Let this be a reminder that we must always listen to one another. We are stronger together, and love will guide us through any storm. The villagers cheered, their hearts swelling with pride and unity. Zoe's words sparked a new energy within them, and they began to share their own stories, each tale a thread woven into the fabric of their community. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the village, Elder Juma looked around at the smiling faces of his fellow villagers. Today, we have not only honored the spirits but also each other, he said, raising his cup in a toast. To Oyud, may we always stand together in love and understanding. The villagers raised their cups in unison, their voices ringing out in a joyous cheer. To Oyud. And so, the village of Oyud thrived, united by their shared experiences and the lessons learned from the storm. Zoe became a renowned storyteller, sharing tales of bravery, wisdom, and the importance of unity. Each story she told was a reminder of their journey, a testament to the strength of family and community. As the seasons changed and the rains returned, the village flourished, crops blossoming and laughter echoing through the hills. Elder Juma watched with pride as Zoe shared her stories with the younger generations, ensuring that the legacy of Oyud would live on for years to come. In the heart of the village, the bonds of love and understanding grew stronger, and the story of Zoe's sacrifice became a cherished tale, passed down through the ages. The villagers knew that together, they could weather any storm and emerge stronger, united by the power of their shared stories. And thus, the village of Oyud thrived, a beacon of hope and togetherness, where laughter filled the air and the spirit of community reigned supreme. The moral of the story is that love, understanding, and unity are stronger than fear and desperation. It teaches us the importance of listening to one another and valuing every life, as true strength lies in community and compassion. The tale emphasizes that through communication and collaboration, we can overcome challenges and find solutions that honor both our traditions and our loved ones. Ultimately, It reminds us that in times of crisis, we must come together, support one another, and seek wisdom to guide our decisions.